Welcome to Going in Grace, a podcast where we go beyond simply understanding God's Word. We explore how to live it out daily, making a meaningful impact in our lives and the lives of those around us. Let's tune in to this week's episode.
Do you want everything you know the Lord is calling you to, but you struggle with leaving behind what's familiar? Even when you know God is calling you forward. If that's the case, you're not the first one to experience that. Comfort zones can be deceiving. They feel safe, but sometimes they keep us stagnant and end up being a trap. Abraham, known as the father of faith, had to walk away from everything familiar to step into his divine calling. Today, we'll explore why God often removes us from the comfortable places to help us grow, and how we can trust Him through that process. Leaving comfort isn't easy, but God never asks us to move without a purpose, even if He is the only one who knows that purpose at the moment. In Genesis 12:1, the Lord told Abraham, "Get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you." God didn't give Abraham all the details up front, just a direction. Sometimes, dare I say most of the time, God calls us to trust Him without seeing the full picture. Whether it's a new city, a different career, or letting go of relationships that hinder spiritual growth, stepping into the unknown requires faith. Imagine if Abraham had resisted, choosing to stay in familiarity instead of following God's call. He would have missed the covenant promise that shaped generations. The covenant promise that you and I, who have received Jesus Christ as Lord, are living in today, thousands of years later. When God calls us out, He is inviting us into something greater that impacts many lives, not just our own. Leaving familiar places can be hard. The struggle comes because change challenges us. It forces us to confront fear, uncertainty, and even loss. We ask ourselves, what if I fail? What if I'm not ready? What if I end up alone? What if I go broke doing this? These thoughts can help keep us bound. But 2 Corinthians 5:7 reminds us, "For we walk by faith, not by sight." God sees the outcome, even when we can't. Sometimes familiar places include people who don't encourage our growth. Abraham had to leave his father's house to step into his divine calling. Could it be that some relationships, habits, or environments are holding you back from what God is leading you toward? If that checked you on the inside, I may be talking directly to you. When God moves us, it is always for a reason. Growth cannot happen without change. Just as a seed must leave the safety of the soil in order to sprout, we too must allow God to uproot us when necessary. Look at Hebrews 11:8. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he would receive as an inheritance. And he went out, not knowing where he was going. Obedience to God often means stepping into uncertainty. But on the other side, there is a blessing. Abraham became the father of many nations because he chose God over comfort. What if your obedience is tied to someone else's breakthrough? More than likely it is. The real question is, do we love God more than our comfort? Comfort zones feel safe, but they can be prisons, keeping us from the abundant life that God has for us. In Matthew 16:24, Jesus says, "If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Following Jesus means surrendering our plans, even when the journey feels uncertain. Here's what I want you to remember. God removes us from familiarity to elevate us. What feels like loss is often a setup for something greater. You can't make room for another meal until you digest the one that's already in your belly. You have to move forward. Faith means walking even when the path isn't clear. Like Abraham, trust that God knows the destination even when you don't. Love God more than comfort. Comfort will fade, but God's promises, they endure. If God is calling you to step out of something familiar, don't resist. Trust that His plans for you far exceed anything you're leaving behind. The unknown is only unknown to you. God has already prepared the way. Thank you for spending time with me today. If this message encouraged you, share it with someone who needs it. I look forward to talking to you next week.
You've been listening to Going in Grace. Be sure to visit us online at brandistover.com.